The change in CBA language after the vote, even if it were minor, is a big deal and grounds for invalidation. But here the change is a major indirect impact on hundreds of more disabled players and their families. Investigate, invalidate. Stephen A., I'll start with you here. Should we care about Reid's stance on this?
No, not at all. It's for one reason and one reason only, because it's coming from him. If the same argument was coming from Richard Sherman, if the same argument was coming from a host of other players in the National Football League who were vehemently against agreeing to this deal, the Russell Coons of the world and others, that would be different. But coming from Eric Reid, it actually taints the situation because he's been so adversarial with the National Football League for the last several years that ultimately folks are going to discount what he has to say. Clearly, this is a situation where what he is saying is legitimate, and I'm not trying to delegitimize his words in any way, because there were players with the Players Association who vehemently disagreed, which is why the vote was so close. And that's something that can't be ignored. You saw people show up at the Ritz-Carlton in Key Biscayne, from what I was told, and they were all over DeMaurice Smith, the executive director for the Players Association, and beyond, because they did not like some of the things that took place with this deal. And they had never instructed DeMaurice Smith to show up and come back with an offer of a 17-game season. But according to them, he did it anyway. That's neither here nor there. What I'm saying is, when you look at Eric Reid's situation, since Colin Kaepernick and the protests in 2016, he was the first player to kneel with Colin Kaepernick. We applaud him for that. Please don't get us wrong. It definitely was the right thing to do, and we should always support him in that regard. But ever since then, the relationship with the NFL, collusion cases and beyond, approaching players on the field, trying to fight with them because they didn't march lockstep with what you thought they should do and what have you. You have been cantankerous. You have been abrasive at every turn, not just towards the NFL league office, but towards some of your contemporaries in the National Football League. And so now that you've gotten let go by the Carolina Panthers, even though he's good enough and should be in the league, the manner in which you have spoken against everything, the reality of the situation is people are going to summarily dismiss anything that he has to say, because they're going to view him as an abrasive outsider who's too emotional to be involved in stuff like this. Take his same argument, let Richard Sherman or somebody else say it, but coming from Eric Reid, ain't nobody trying to hear it.
Well, Eric Reid is the one saying it, and frequently Eric Reid is the one saying things. He's not scared of it. He's not scared of being ostracized and losing his job for speaking truth to power. My hat's off to him once again, by the way. This is not for the first time, Stephen A. So because he speaks truth to power, because he may have a differing opinion from someone else in the union on a contractual issue, on social issues, he shouldn't be taken seriously? You want to murder the messenger? I mean, first of all, let's look at the message. What the NFL did, according to Eric Reid and the evidence he presented, it looks as though they slipped in language that excludes a large number of players from benefits, retired players from benefits. And according to Eric Reid and others, this is not what was negotiated. The NFL simply unilaterally, according to Eric Reid, changed the language. And he did provide, here's the language over here, here's the language we received. And he's saying that's reason to investigate and potentially invalidate. And if that's true, I think he's probably right. So I shouldn't take him seriously. Why? Because he's also argued things in the past, by the way, many of which he was right about. Now, let's look at him as a player for a second. Yes, Carolina released him. There are better players than Eric Reid that have been released for various reasons by teams who want to restructure the way they do things. He's a safety who didn't have an interception, though he had a good season, 130 combined tackles. He wound up with 4 sacks. He did a lot of good things, but maybe they're looking for a different kind of player in that slot, a cheaper player in that slot. Maybe you're right. Maybe he causes certain off-the-field headaches for them that they just don't want to deal with, and for those other reasons, they're going to replace him anyway. I tell you this, Eric Reid will have a job next year, by the way, and if he doesn't, that's cause for investigation.
You sure about that?
Because he can still ball. Yeah.
First of all, there's plenty of people that could still ball. First of all, we all thought Colin Kaepernick could still ball. I told you he wouldn't get a job after what happened. What has happened? It was very predictable what would transpire after he made the decision that he made, and it's perfectly within his right to do so. Secondly, again, I'm not invalidating what Eric Reid has said in any way. What I'm saying is Eric Reid's behavior invalidates Eric Reid, because the bottom line is those people, you could have been working with the Players Association. You could have worked with the Players Association when it came to Colin Kaepernick. You could have been working with the Players Association when it came to this matter. According to them, this is not something that Eric Reid has ever been inclined to do, because he's been so abrasive towards his own contemporaries. Now, if they're lying on him, they're lying on him. That's a different matter altogether. But if his behavior is any indication, it would say they're telling the truth. And if they are telling the truth, how productive are you going to be bringing this stuff up if you know no one wants to listen to you because of how you get? All of those things matter. Again, what he is saying in terms of his content is right. He's not the only one saying it, Max. I can assure you that. There are plenty of other players that were arguing during the negotiations when they were sitting across the table from the NFL that were arguing about a lot of these things. Make no mistake about it. He ain't new to this. There are other people that are members of the NFL Players Association board that were there and were fighting. It's just that they got outvoted, which is definitely a negative. It's sad to say. But in terms of Eric Reid, how you conduct yourself does matter in terms of people's willingness to listen to you. That's all I'm saying.
When you say things like what you did about Kaepernick and use him as an example of, hey, careful, because if you do speak truth to power, even if you're within your rights to do so, even if you're in fact correct, you can jeopardize your employment. You're not wrong, because look what happened to Kaepernick. Number one, Kaepernick did not have the value at his position that Reid had at his position. He was considered a bubble starter at the time. Reid is considered a solid starter, if not better than that. My prediction is Reid will get a job. If he doesn't,
not the point.
That should be an issue. But number one. Number two is I think there is danger in using Kaepernick as a warning. Hey, everybody, careful, kowtow to power or you might be out of a job.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.